Today we're finishing up our series on Relationshipology, and we're talking about chronology today. So there's two Greek words for time. One of them is going to be kairos, which is God's time. The other is going to be chronos, which is where we get our word chronology, and that's like the clock that ticks, like 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in a hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. So that's the chronos. There's nothing we can do about it. It's predictable. It's relentless. It happens. For those of you who were here last week when we did our confirmation survey, here's what I was thinking. Like Benjamin was, I think the third or fourth kid I confirmed, and you saw me get emotional when I was doing that, and the reason why is because of chronos. I remember the day that the bishop was there and asked us the questions. We raised his kids so that one day he may profess his faith in Jesus Christ, and that's what he was doing. But man, those 13 years happened like that. And the words of the song are true. There just never seems to be enough time, to do the things that we want to do. There doesn't seem to be enough time to, do those things with the people that we want them to do them with. And so let me ask you guys some questions, all right? And I want you to participate. So the first one is, who here would like to have just a little bit more time for yourself? Raise your hand. Just to kind of do some of the things that you want to do, and there's probably a little bucket list you have, and you're just not quite there yet. Now the next question is this: who wants to have a little bit more time to spend with friends and with loved ones? Okay, I'm going to give you a little clue here. Just, if you're sitting by a friend or loved one, the right answer is both hands in the air. Just pretend we're in a charismatic or a Pentecostal church just for 5 seconds. And what about this one? Who would like to spend a little bit more time with God? God's watching you, so seriously, the correct answer is yes. God, we want to spend more time with you. Okay, so I think pretty much all of us would like to have more time for ourselves. We'd like to have more time with loved ones, with others, and we'd like to have more time with God. But here's the deal: if there's 26 hours in a day, I don't really think it would make much difference. I think I could ask those two questions and I would get the exact same responses, that there's just not quite enough time to do the things that we want with the people that we want. I don't think that I don't think that if you got 2 extra hours a day that all of a sudden you'd be spending 30 minutes a day with God, 30 minutes a day taking care of yourself, and an hour intentional with someone that you love. I don't think that would happen. Think about this, think about the last time you've kind of had an unplanned day off, or at least an unplanned few hours, maybe a kid's practice was canceled or something like that, or it was a snow day. What did you do? Well, were you intent? Did you go to the gym and take care of yourself? Did you read or do something that nourishes you? Did you do something you wanted to do? Did you hang out with the people that were most important to you? Did you sit down and spend some intentional time with God? Did you pray? Did you read the Bible? Did you listen to some worship video or something like that? Probably not. I think there's probably a pretty good chance you ran some errands, you did some cleaning, you went through some email, you caught up on some stuff. You see, here's how this works. The tyranny of the urgent, whether there's 22 hours in a day or 24 hours in a day or 26 hours in a day, whether you're exceptionally busy or just kind of busy, the tyranny of the urgent is going to overwhelm our priorities. The tyranny of the urgent is going to overwhelm the things that we say are important. So I want to go to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. So here Paul he's nearing the end of his life. He's not quite there yet, but he's getting there. Now this is pretty much his rock star church. This is the cream of the crop, and he's reflecting on his life. He's sharing with a very large group of people here. In this letter, it's been read by millions of people since then. So Paul says, be careful how you live. That one's not a surprise. We would expect to hear that one. You get that one in a self-help book. He says, don't live like fools. But here's where it gets gospel. But live as those who are wise. Make most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. Now, here, what Paul is saying, Paul, he's been there, he's done this. he knows that he's wasted time. Paul knows that, like, there's been times when he's done things that, like, he just, even though it may not have been bad things, like, he just missed some opportunities. And in here, like, be careful, and basically what he's saying is, like, be careful that the pull, from lesser things doesn't distract us from the most important things. Be careful when you plan. Be careful what you say yes to. Be careful what you say no to. Make the most of every opportunity. Why? Because Paul says the days are evil. And what he means by that is something like we deal with today. Like, culture will always pull us, from these critical, most important things to lesser important things. What they're going to do is some of the days, some of these, what Paul would say is an evil day, they're just going to suck the life right out of you. Now, I'm going to tell you some things about you, some things about me. Like, it is not God's plan for us, for you or for me, that we wake up and we're tired. That's not God's plan. It's not God's plan that when you go to bed at night, you're just overwhelmed with the responsibilities of the next day. That's not what God plans for you. It's just not. What we're looking at here is like, let me just give you an example. So I had a person I did not know. It might have been a little bit different for someone I knew really well, but I had a person I did not know, like, last week. She called me up and she said, "Hey, I was at a wedding you did a couple months ago, and we're getting married on August 1st. Can you do our wedding?" You know what I said? No. Can't do it. I felt good about it. And the reason why it goes like this, like, this summer has like 11 weekends from the time that, like, school gets out to the time school starts. Now, because of debate camp, because of mission trips, because of soccer, because of a denominational thing that I have to attend, there's 3 of these weekends that I have free. Just 3. That's it. No more. Now, if I would have said yes to this family that I didn't know, I would have been saying no to David. I would have been saying no to someone like Benjamin. I would have been saying no to, like, doing something that I want to do. For me, like, I'd rather be able to look Benjamin in the eye and say, "Hey, this is our Saturday. There's no interruptions. Me and you're just going to hang out." To say to David, like, let's just, like, spend this day together. To say to the family, like, this is our weekend. Like, this is cool stuff. So sometimes, like, we have to say no to some pretty good things, and that's what this wedding was a pretty good thing, so that we can say yes to the best things. Now, how we're going to look at this, is we're going to look at 3 questions. So when they ask me the question, when someone asks you, like, can you do this, what's the first thing that you usually do? You check your what? You check your calendar. So the question is, am I free? That's the question. Hey, I'm free. I don't have anything going on August 1st. Hey, it's your lucky day. It's now I'm down to 2 weekends that I have left with no responsibilities. I'm free. I can do it. Now, the second question we ask is it right? Yeah, it's right. Like, it's right for me to get to know this couple. It's right for me to do this wedding. But the question is it wise? Paul says, don't live based on your calendar. Don't live based on whether something's right or wrong. He says, live based on wisdom. And here it's not wise to say yes to something that's pretty good, which is going to force me to say no to something that's awesome. So think about it in this way. So we got those 3 questions. So when this comes your way, and this comes your way every day, I mean, you make these choices every day. I make these choices every day. So what it looks like is, in light of whatever, is it wise? So let's say this. Someone like your boss says, "Hey, got a really sweet deal for you. You're getting a promotion. There's some more money. There's some more travel. Now, you get a choice whether you're going to take this promotion or not." So you're like, okay, in light of me having a 17-year-old kid who's got 1 year left before she goes to college, is it wise that I do this thing right now? That's how this works. Like, say if you have like a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old or something like that, like, okay, is it wise that I go hang out with my buddies after work in light of this fact that I have these 2 kids, one who's 5 and one who's 8, and they're only going to be 5 and 8 one time? Is it wise that I keep doing this? Now, you may be available there's nothing wrong with hanging out with friends that give you life, but the question we have to ask is it wise? It might be, in light of me feeling tired most of the time, is it wise that I take on more responsibility? You may have a few sections of your calendar that you could possibly squeeze a few more things in. This may be a good cause, but is it wise that you do something that's only going to make you more tired? Now, I'm going to read from the Bible. I'm going to read what Paul read just a little bit ago from James 4:14. We're going to look at another one of these. This one says, how do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? You don't. You don't know. He's asking a rhetorical question here. Your life is like the morning fog. It's here for a little while, and then it's gone. So think about this one. In light of my days being numbered, is it wise that I spend so much time and energy on activities that just aren't that important? You don't ask the question, am I available? You don't ask the question, is it right? You ask the question, is it wise? So in James chapter 4, verse 15, James continues, what you ought to say is, if this is what the Lord wants us to do, then we'll do this or that. If it's wise, then we're going to do this or that. And so the burning question then becomes, how is it that we make time for the things that matter most? How is it that we make time for the people that matters most? Now, you've heard me say this before. If you've been around here for more than like 4 months or 6 months, if you've been around here for years, you've heard me say this many times. I'm going to repeat it because we leak. We need to keep hearing this because it's so essential. The first thing that we do is we say no to good things. You say no to average things. You say no to mediocre things. You say no to pretty good things so that you can say yes to the best things. Now, too many good things is actually the enemy of the best things. I'm going to read from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Here Paul writes, don't copy the customs and the behaviors and customs of this world. So, what are the behaviors and the customs of this world? What's normal? Normal is if you're in a relationship, it's empty. Normal, if you have kids, there's rebellion. Normal, if you're talking about chronology, you're busy. Normal, if you talk about how you feel, you're tired. That's normal. Paul says, don't copy those things. Don't copy those behaviors. Don't copy those customs. But let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will be able to learn God's will for you. Now, here's God's will for you. God's will is not that you're tired. God's will is not that you're empty. God's will is not that you're bored. God's will is not that you're busy. God's will for you and for me is good and pleasing and perfect. So I've done this before. I want to do it again. If I would go up to somebody, okay? If I would go up to somebody and ask them how they're doing, what would be probably the most common response? I'm busy. Got a lot of stuff going on. I'm busy. And when's the last time you've actually went up to someone and say, hey, how's it going? You know what? I'm really bored. I just can't find anything to do. I got these two elementary kids, and they clean the house. They do their own homework. They fix and clean the food. My spouse is like Superman. He does everything and then some. I just wish I could find something to occupy all my time. Have you had any of those conversations? No, how you doing? I'm busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. Now, you got to hear something about being busy. Busyness does not equal productive. I know a lot of people that are busy that they're on this treadmill, and the treadmill's going faster. They're getting really tired. They're not going anywhere, but they're busy. Busy doesn't mean important. I know important people who aren't. They're very balanced with their time. I know people that aren't as important, and they're just swamped. They got so much stuff going on. Busyness, it doesn't equal meaning. Busyness, it just does not. It doesn't equal meaning. Now, I want you to listen to this, all right? It's not going to be up on the screen, so you got to listen. I contend that so many people are being robbed from life, not because they aren't committed, but because they're overcommitted. I really believe that. I think we're being robbed of life, not because we're not busy, we're not significant. I think we're being robbed of life because we're overcommitted, because we're too busy. So I got a confession. I'm gonna make this to you, and I don't want you to like judge me or anything. Yesterday I did something really bad. My son Benjamin, he's a soccer player. He's on this U14 team, and he's a starting defender. And guess what? He didn't play soccer. I kept him out of the game. I know I'm a bad person, aren't I? Like, he missed the game because of me. Now, I'm a bad person too. Like, I'm the coach of the team. I didn't show up. I wasn't at the game. And like, I'm fine with that. Like, I've coached hundreds of games. I've coached probably 1,000 practices. Benjamin, he's been alongside me most of the way. Yesterday we played Council Bluffs. It was a big game. They were in second place. We're in third place, and you're not going to believe this. Like, despite the rock star coach not being there, despite this thug defender who can pretty much stop anybody not being there, like, the team still won. Life goes on. But Benjamin, a couple months ago actually, he said he wanted to go to the Berkshire convention. Now, I own like 20 shares of Class A stock, so I was interested in going too. Why are y'all laughing? so like, we said no to something good, like soccer. It's fun. We like doing it. We're part of a team. But we said yes to something better. Now, I cannot remember the last time that Benjamin and I have spent 9 hours consecutive together. Can't. Couldn't even tell you when. It's just been me and him for that long. Now, there's soccer games before. There'll be more soccer games to come. We got one next Monday night. But sometimes it was so cool yesterday. Like, we got there a little bit late, so we scrambled to find a seat and went around, shopped for some stuff, and we had a private lunch with Warren Buffett. That was really cool. And I had more people to laugh at the 20 shares of Berkshire A stock. Like, I did not have lunch with Warren Buffett. It was Jason's Deli out of a box. We listened to the questions, stayed around for the meeting, and so here's how we do it. We say no to some good things so we can say yes to better things. Number 2 is that we're present. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, and let us not neglect our meeting together. Let's look at that. Let it be present. Let us not neglect our meeting together, as some do, but encourage one another, especially now that his day of return is drawing near. And like, I believe that the whole idea of quality time is a myth. I don't buy into it. I don't believe it's possible for a parent to look a kid in the eye and say, well, we got 2 hours to spend together. Let's make these really good hours. No, that's not the way it works. Yeah, I believe we live in a culture where our kids, our relationships in general, are activity rich and relationship poor. I love my favorite line from probably almost any movie is a dialogue between Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. When Christopher Robin looks at Winnie the Pooh and he asks Winnie the Pooh what his most important thing in the world is. And Winnie the Pooh looks at Christopher Robin and he says, my favorite thing in the world is doing nothing with you. You don't squeeze that into 2 hours. You don't squeeze that into 45 minutes. There's a myth that this quality time, there's no replace for quantity time. There's no replacement for being present. Now, you got time to pull this off. I don't know if you do, but you do. You really do. Like, you're not too busy. You're not. The issue isn't having enough time. The issue is having a misuse of time. Now, this is crazy. I did some research this week. In 2005, the average American watched television for 24 hours a day. 1/7 of our life 10 years ago was spent in front of a television screen. Now, it gets worse. Like, the year is 2015 now. So this year, we're actually watching less television. We don't watch 24 hours of television a week anymore. It's less than 20 for most of us. But we spend 36 hours a week of our discretionary time in front of a screen. Text messaging, social media, entertainment, television, surfing the web, whatever. That's crazy. That's almost a full work week. You got the time. Unless you're just one of those like outliers that does none of this stuff, you got the time. As I go back to I think what was one of the most fruitful stages in ministry, and this applies to you. Like, just think about you're a minister, you're a shepherd, you're part of the gospel. If I go back to probably what I think was the most effective time for me, with a very small group of people, but when I went to my church in Iowa in 2000, they said, with no implication otherwise, like, we want you to spend time with our middle and our high school kids. They've just been neglected for too long. And not just that, but the kids of the community. So, like, you know what I did? I was not a good youth minister. I mean, I can give you 100 names of people who were better youth ministers than me. It was not natural for me. It wasn't easy for me. But I mean, if nothing else, I was present with the kids. I talked to the principal a couple days before school started. I said, would it be possible for me to come and, like, just hang out with the kids during lunch? And he said, yeah, as long as you don't, like, talk about Jesus too much. I can get in trouble for that. But just, come and hang out. We'd love to have you around. I remember the first time I did it was just a couple days into school. I didn't know what had happened before, but, like, these 3 kids were at a table because they got in trouble. I knew one of them, so I went up and started talking to him. Hey, how's it going? And all of a sudden, like, the lunchroom monitor comes back, and these 3 kids are in trouble. She says, well, we're off to a bad start. We're like 2 days into this, and you guys aren't going to be allowed to sit together anymore, and next time you're going to, whatever the consequence was. And then she looked at me and she says, I'm going to be keeping my eye on you too. I was like 27. I looked like I was 22. I acted like I was 16, so we're perfect. But I used to keep, like, score at the basketball games. Like, that was pressure, like making sure the ball's, like, clock stopped and the possession arrow. And I used to do it at the wrestling. I would stand on the sidelines at the football games. The kids would come over to our house all the time. I've done probably, I don't know, out of this group, 10, 14 weddings. One of the kids came and lived with us. There's another that comes to the church, like, here now. And it wasn't because I was good. It was because I was present. Now, I want you to think about this. Like, think about the people that God has given you in your life. You don't have to be good. All we have to do is be present. Don't neglect meeting together. Now, being present is not going to be quite enough. I think 10 years ago, the sermon would look a little bit different than it would have been today. But in addition to being present, we have to be engaged. Just being there, it's just not quite enough. 1 John chapter 3, verse 18. Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Let us show the truth by our actions. Present could be there, but distracted, and that's not good enough. It's just not enough to be there. We have to be engaged as well. Now, here's what engaged looks like. Engaged means that we listen. Engaged means that we look somebody in the eye and we're saying to them, I'm willing to hear your story. I want to hear your story. I want to be part of your story. What it means to be engaged, it means that sometimes we're going to have healthy confrontation. Sometimes we're going to have the difficult conversations. Sometimes we're going to sacrifice comfort for progress. Sometimes what it's going to mean is that we're just going to put the other person before everything else. I'm going to say no to these distractions so I can say yes to you. I'm going to say no to my fears. I'm going to say no to what's coming up. I'm going to say no to my past so I can be here for you. This is what it means to be engaged. I was thinking about what it meant to be engaged, and I was thinking about my grandpa Adolf. Like, he's the one that taught me so much about life. And every time I was with him, he was totally engaged. He wasn't just present, he was engaged. I remember our favorite thing to do was to go fishing. And we'd go up to, like, Lake Okoboji and go to Pickerel Lake. We'd go to Storm Lake. We'd go to Rush Lake. And we'd fish. And it wasn't about fishing. It was about being engaged. It was about being present. This man listened to my fears. He listened to my hopes. He listened to my dreams. He listened to my stories. He invited me to do the same. He would give advice when he thought it would be helpful. It's so different than what I experience with much of our culture today. As we conclude this, I just want to leave you with one more thing. I really think the most important thing in life is knowing the most important thing in life. Knowing that we're created to be in relationships. We're created to be in a relationship with ourselves, a healthy relationship. We're created to be in a relationship with God, a healthy, flourishing, growing relationship. And we're created to be in relationships with other people. And it's going to take some work. Some of us have to say no to some things that we hold dear so we can say yes to something much better. Some of us are going to have to say no so that we can be present. And some of us, when we're present, we're going to have to say no to some other things so we can be totally engaged. And what we did that first week is we looked at the theos, which means God, the theology. And the thing here is that God gives us each other. It's a gift. These relationships are a gift, and if you just got a few of them, you're blessed. The next week we looked at toxicology, and what this means is sometimes relationships aren't going to be pretty, they're not going to be perfect, but we can work through them. Last week, the next week in the series was cardiology. It's like this incredible thing that can happen when our heart can connect with another person's heart and both our hearts connect with God's heart. If you can figure that part out, just like with one or two other people, consider yourself beyond blessed. And then today, as we looked at the chronology, it's not going to come, these things don't happen on accident, they happen on purpose. Usually they don't happen very easy, they can be very difficult, but it's totally worth the effort.